He drove a bulldozer onto my lawn. No warning, no permission. Straight through the roses my wife had spent years planting. Then, with a smug grin, he handed me a paper and said, "It's for the greater good, Tom." A week later, my yard was taped off, the workers vanished, and he wasn't smiling anymore. A month later, he started seeing the sign I put right in front of my house, every single morning. But what happened next? Even the most jaded folks didn't see that coming. It was supposed to be just another morning. I stepped out onto the porch with my cup of coffee, like I've done every day for the past 10 years. The weather was warm, birds were singing, and the scent of fresh-cut grass drifted lazily above the neatly trimmed hedges. A little slice of paradise. Quiet. Peaceful. Exactly what I left the city for. And then, vibration. Not even a sound. A vibration, like an earthquake rising from the earth. I took a step forward, and then came the roar. Metallic, heavy, mechanical. Like hell itself had decided to park on my front lawn. I looked to the left and nearly dropped my mug. An orange bulldozer. A real one, with a scoop, tracks, flashing lights. And it was rolling straight across my yard, leaving ruts as deep as the sins of the HOA. At the controls, Mark Bowen, president of our HOA, local celebrity, big guy, blue polo with the association logo, and a smug grin that looked like it had been born on his face. Mark's the kind of guy who'll smile while pressing your neck to the ground, because that's what the bylaws say. I bolted onto the lawn, nearly tripping over the garden hose. "Are you out of your mind?" I yelled, waving my arms, running alongside the treads. "This is private property. Shut it down." He didn't flinch. In fact, the scoop started tearing into my front garden. The roses, Linda's roses, the ones my wife planted every spring, were tossed aside like weeds. My flower beds, fencing, decorative stone, flattened under a goddamn bulldozer. Mark finally slowed down, turned to me, and said with complete calm, "HOA approved the road expansion, Tom. Were you at the meeting?" "No?" "Well, then, the decision's been made. It's for the greater good." The greater good? Seriously? Cutting a road from his brand new townhouse to the main street, through my private property, and calling that a public service? I didn't even know what to feel first. Rage, disbelief, or absurdity. It all swirled together in my head. He hopped down from the bulldozer and handed me a crumpled sheet of paper. 2 board members' signatures. A blurry sketch that looked like a kid drew it on a napkin with a Sharpie. "It's all legal," he said, and walked away without looking back. And there I was. Alone, on a destroyed lawn, clutching a scrap of paper. The bushes were gone. The treads had torn the grass to ribbons, like tanks had rolled through. And worst of all, I had no idea what to do next, but I knew one thing: I wouldn't be staying quiet for long. 2 days later, my yard was surrounded by wooden stakes tied with bright pink ribbons. They fluttered in the breeze like victory flags, except someone had decided they'd already won. Every flicker of those ribbons whispered, "This isn't yours anymore, Tom." Every morning, the workers showed up. I'd never seen them before. Young guys in tank tops, some with earbuds, some with beer in hand. They set their lunch boxes on my porch steps, smoked right there, and tossed burger wrappers under my bushes. One of them even stuck his foot into my bucket of gardening tools and smirked. "You live here or something?" And Mark? He strolled the neighborhood like a conquering hero, chatted up the neighbors, pointed at my house, and announced with pride, "Now this is what I call progress. Infrastructure upgrade, folks. Fast, clean, by the book." It felt like he was savoring every second. This wasn't just about pushing a project. He was publicly putting me in my place. I tried talking to neighbors, Judy and Rick across the street, the young couple who just bought the place down the block. But their eyes dropped. their voices lowered. "Sorry, Tom. We don't want to get involved. HOA already threatened to tear down our gazebo or ban our Labrador. They've got leverage." Leverage. Yeah, Mark had leverage on everyone but me. The damage wasn't just on my lawn anymore. It was in every cracked branch, every broken petal Linda had once lovingly planted, in every inch of ground I used to call mine. But that's not what really pissed me off. What burned me up was this. He didn't even bother to ask who he was dealing with. He saw an old guy in jeans and a t-shirt, gray at the temples, with a lawnmower in hand. He figured I was just another homeowner grumbling about the HOA, paying dues on time, going with the flow. One of the many. One of the obedient. Well, big mistake. See, 10 years ago I did walk away, sold my share, bought a house, started planting roses. But before that, I spent 25 years building this state. Residential developments, highways, malls, logistics centers, even the damn city hall the HOA now runs to with their little permits. I'm Tom Garner, one of the biggest developers in Central Texas. My projects cover 40% of what people here call civilization. But I didn't throw business cards in faces. I didn't flash credentials. I opened my laptop, pulled up the parcel maps, found the deeds, checked the boundaries, looked up HOA jurisdiction, called an old friend, real estate attorney, and guess what we found? My lot. It's not under HOA authority, not on paper, not in practice. Even more, there were no permits filed for this road. No city registry, no geological survey, no approved plan, nothing. Mark just decided. Decided that if no one squeaked, he'd push it through. That if neighbors were scared, if no one spoke up, if the guy with the lawnmower kept quiet, it'd be fine. That's when I stopped being Tom from House 14. I became Tom Garner again, the man who moved millions, the one whose signature started cranes and raised blocks, the one every building inspector in Austin knew by name, and I decided it was time to remind them. When rage stops boiling, it becomes a tool, sharp as a scalpel, focused like a laser. That's the kind of anger I had. I started building a case. Not emotions, not complaints, facts, land registry records, deeds, aerial photos, before and after, clear pictures of the damage, bulldozer tracks, destroyed landscaping, a shattered irrigation system. I pulled up underground utility maps, gas lines, fiber optic cables, water mains. I brought in a surveyor to confirm. Yes, my property lines had been crossed. A lawyer, to make it all airtight. And of course the press. So they'd be the first to know how our HOA handles infrastructure upgrades. Once the lawsuit was ready, I filed it, against Mark personally, and against the HOA itself. Amount, $2.3 million. Grounds, destruction of private property, unlawful trespassing, unpermitted construction, and endangerment of critical infrastructure. But that was just the beginning. I contacted the city's Department of Infrastructure and handed over the documents, pointed out that unauthorized excavation had taken place without geological studies, especially near high-voltage lines. One wrong dig, and it wouldn't just be a lawsuit, it'd be a city-wide evacuation. A week later, everything changed. My property was taped off, the workers vanished like they'd never been there. That orange bulldozer, abandoned in the corner, stood silent, like proof of someone else's recklessness. The HOA went into meltdown, emergency meetings, calls, emails, shouting matches. And Mark? Mark wasn't smiling anymore. That smirk vanished the moment the first court notice arrived. Then the second, this time from the building department. And the third, from a reporter working on a piece titled, "When the HOA Forgets the Law Works Both Ways." And then came the emergency HOA meeting. I didn't just show up, I waited for it. A room full of chairs, Faces of residents, some hopeful, some awkward, some relieved someone was finally speaking up. I stepped up to the mic. No papers, no binder, just my voice. Calm, clear. My name is Tom Garner. I'm the lead developer at G-Tech Development. I've built more roads than you've driven on in your life, Mark. You tried to cut a road through my yard without even checking who owns it. You destroyed what my family spent years building. But worst of all, you destroyed trust. You did it with a grin, with no permits, with no respect. Now it's time to answer for it, fully. Silence. Not a cough. Not a phone buzz. Even the ceiling fan seemed to stop. Then, applause. Not loud, but firm, and with each second, it grew. Someone stood. Then another. Then the whole room. Mark looked at me. Pale. Hands clasped. No words. And that's when I knew. This was only the beginning. Winning the lawsuit felt less like a battle and more like checking off a form. The HOA was ordered to pay full compensation for the damage, emotional distress, and legal fees. The neighborhood buzzed. Even the quiet ones whispered at backyard parties, "Did you hear what happened to Mark?" Yeah, Mark Bowen is no longer HOA president. 1 week after the verdict, he was removed from office. 2 weeks later, fired from his architecture firm. Turns out the road through my yard wasn't his only initiative. He'd been pushing projects without votes for years, leaning on fear and waving around papers signed on behalf. The irony? He got fired the same day someone spray-painted his car. "You're next, Bowen." Guess one of his allies had enough. And the bulldozer, the one he wrecked my lawn with? I bought it at a municipal auction, for pennies. It had been impounded, for unlicensed use. Symbolic, isn't it? I placed it right at the entrance to Sunnyview, painted it bright white, and on the scoop, I installed a massive black plaque. In gold letters, it reads, "This is where the HOA's power ends." Now, when residents drive past, they slow down. Some smile, some honk. One old man, had to be pushing 80, nodded from his car and said, "Thanks, Tom. You did what we were scared to do for 30 years. And now I sit on my porch again, sipping my morning coffee, watching sunlight dance on the petals of the roses, Linda's roses, she once planted with so much love. The lawn is even, green, lush, the yard restored, peace returned. And the road, oh, the road. It stayed right where it belongs, in the folder of unapproved projects, right next to Mark's career. He lives by the road now. Literally. In a small townhouse, with a perfect view of that bulldozer. And the best part? Every morning when he steps out for the paper, the first thing he sees is my sign. And the first thing I see is him reading it. Every damn day. And that, my friends, is the best morning of my life.